This week, I learned that we create stories around the way we feel. I learned it in a class, and then I experienced it in real time. Let's talk about it. Hi, friend. This is Candi, your favorite hypnotherapist. I love to say favorite, but you probably don't know too many of us, though it is a growing occupation. Anyways, this is Candid Coaching, where we do real talk about real things that I've experienced, things others have experienced, or things that I just know about or learning about. Real change, real healing. So this week, I take a lot of classes. I'm in a class right now where we're just talking about just somatic work. And in the class, Deb Dana was mentioned. And Deb Dana does a lot of work around polyvagal theory. And if you don't know what that is, it's really just some fascinating stuff about the nervous system and how that works. And I won't bore you with the details, but in it, she mentioned that Deb Dana talks about how story follows a nervous system emotional states and how you can change your story. But depending on the state that you are in, whether you're in a very depressed or low state or a very happy, connected, high state. So if you're in fight, flight, you will create a story around that state. And so this week, my husband had a small surgery, one where he had a little bit of twilight. I think they call it that. It's like something to put you kind of a little bit out of it so that you don't feel what they're doing. And so after the surgery, I had been sitting there for hours, probably over 4 hours. And I go in to get him. He's in a pretty good mood. He's not out of it. He's hungry, ready to go home, and we leave. And as we're leaving, I say, do you want to get something to eat? Because I still had some work to do, but I hadn't eaten. And I know he hadn't eaten since the night before. And he's like, sure. So I ask him to pick a place, and he picks a place. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to just do drive-through because I have so much to do. And so he's like, okay. Well, he pulls up an app on his phone for the place he wanted to go. He orders the food and then he pays. And he doesn't ask me anything about what I wanted. And I was like, are you serious? Because he had already paid and we're at the drive-through. And actually, we drive into the drive-through. There's nobody behind me. I drive backed out. Yes, I did. And I did that because we were having some problems with the app going through. So it went through. He thought he had paid, and then it still showed he had a total. So he pushed it again. So basically, he ended up paying twice, and we still didn't know if it went through. So we back out. We go inside, and I tell them, hey, it looks like he's been charged twice for one order. And they said, oh, we thought it was, 2 separate orders. We actually filled both of them. I'm like, okay, well, we just need the one. And they were like, well, you might have to call our headquarters or whatever to get a refund on that one. I was like, that's fine, whatever. They were like, do you want both of the meals anyways? And I was just like, sure, whatever. And that was very nice of them. This had nothing to do with them. This was me being triggered. And we take it. And my husband's like, oh, now you can eat. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. I'm not going to eat it. And I was acting very childish, but I was triggered. And instead of judging myself, I allowed myself to sit in that feeling. I allowed myself to be a little bit angry, but mostly I was hurt. So I took my husband home, and then I had to go run some errands. And while I'm running errands, I'm working through this with my own, I'm kind of talking it out loud. Okay, like, what's the problem, Candi? Why are you upset? If I was in a state of like I wasn't hungry and I wasn't tired, I'd been sitting in a small waiting room for, 4 hours. I was tired of sitting. But I didn't think I was in a bad mood at all. And I wasn't, but not all my physical needs were taken care of. I needed to eat. I, needed to move around. I had a lot to do. So there's all these pressures. So I'm already kind of set up for if a trigger comes in, I might not handle it in the way that maybe I want to, or I might have a reaction that maybe is unexpected, but it's a good opportunity. I see triggers as opportunities to be curious. So I'm asking myself these questions as I'm going about running my errands, like, where's this coming from? Why are you so upset with him? He had some medication, and she had mentioned, the nurse had said that it might make him forgetful. Now, my husband doesn't usually forget about me. He doesn't usually forget to include me or ask me if I need anything or any of that. But in this moment, I was triggered, and I thought he didn't even think that I might be hungry. He didn't even consider, my feelings, that I'd been sitting there for him and waiting for him. And I would never do that. I'm saying all these things to myself in my mind. And I'm allowing myself to be angry. I'm allowing myself to work through those things. I'm allowing myself to feel, and I'm feeling sadness. Sadness was the main. At first it was anger, and then it was just sadness. Like, why am I not important enough to think that I might have needs, for someone to think about me? And it's not that he doesn't do that. He does. I do have some childhood trauma where that wasn't always the case with people that cared for me. And I don't blame them. They were doing the best they could. And they didn't have the information that we have today, but I did blame them for a while. And I think that that's part of the healing process is anger. And sometimes that involves blame for a little bit, but you don't stay there, and if you get stuck there, that's when you need some help. But I've moved through that. And so I'm asking myself, and I get to the point where, I've told myself, like, I'm just not important enough. So see the story I'm telling myself. I'm in this state where I'm hungry, I'm tired, I have a lot of pressure of things I need to get done in time restraints. And I'm telling myself a story that I am not important enough or valuable enough to him to consider that I might have been hungry. And I would have told myself a completely different story had I been fed, had I been, not sitting in the same spot for 4 hours, and I'd been going all morning before that. So if I had been in a more balanced state, I would have probably laughed at it and be like, are you serious? Did you forget to, and he felt awful. But and I kind of, in that moment, I wanted him to feel awful. I was angry, and I felt justified in my anger. And I'm not saying my anger wasn't justified, but there was a story I was telling myself in that moment. And I would have told myself a different story if I was in a different nervous system state, is the point. So when you feel yourself triggered, instead of just running with the story and thinking it's true, because a lot of times that's what we do. And we repeat, and that story I have played to myself over and over and over. So I did some journaling on it. Even this morning, I did some journaling on it so I could work through it, asking myself some questions. And here's some questions that Deb Dana suggests that you ask. Like, what are you holding for me? Talking to your body. What do you know? How are you trying to protect me? And is this response from something in the past? Am I in a new place now? How do I better realize now versus then? Is this still necessary? Is this story still necessary? And before I even had those questions, I was asking myself that, like, is this story even true? Is it true? And in what way does it benefit me to hold to this story, even if it's not true? What could I gain or lose if I let go of this story? All of that is information so that you can work through it. But I had to get into a state of connection with my nervous system. So I did have something to eat, and I had time to move around and stuff, and kind of get myself a little more calibrated so that I could do this process. But even in the middle of it, I began to ask myself these things and kind of talking to my body, like, thank you for protecting me. Thank you, nervous system, for working so hard. And sometimes you might be in a state where you can't ask these questions. So allow yourself to be present with it. And I couldn't at first. I had to allow myself to present. I know it seems so small. I know it seems petty and it seems like something that shouldn't be a big deal, but I'm actually happy it happened so I could share this here, where sometimes these little small things blow up into bigger things, and it's not because they're not important. It triggers can happen at any time, and you have to be able to approach them without judgment, with curiosity, and that doesn't come without you intentionally doing it, intentionally letting go of judgment, recognizing that judgment doesn't help anybody. It just makes you rigid. And we want flexibility. We don't want rigidity, because flexibility is stronger than rigidity. Rigidity, think of a rigid piece of like a stick that's rigid, that's brittle. It's easy to break. If it's rigid, it doesn't give much give. But if you think of a stick that can be whipped around in the wind, like if there's a really bad storm, it's not going to easily break. But a rigid one will break easily, because a forceful enough wind will just snap it. Whereas a flexible one will bend with it and return. And that's what I want you to think of, kind of your nervous system, like a tree that's not rigid, but flexible, able to withstand the storms that life brings. And, sometimes it's a small storm, like the situation with my husband, but it taught me a big thing. And I'm working through, and I'll work through it a little bit, and I'll get triggered probably in this same area again, because this is like a core belief for me. This is something that's been programmed in there. And I'll work through that a little bit more. And I'll just keep doing it as life brings me more opportunities or more triggers to work through it. And I will recognize them instead of running from them and being angry at the other person. Oh, this is an opportunity. And my husband and I had a good talk. We went for a walk last night and talked through it. And, he noticed his triggers to shutting down. He felt such shame. And that's his own trigger that he has to work through. And so I just wanted to share that today. I think it's just something that maybe is relatable. Maybe you can notice the next time you're triggered, and you can, when you're able to, take a deep breath and just notice how your body is feeling. Pay attention to what your body is saying, because it's speaking to you all the time. And if you're interested in this kind of work and you want a safe place, a non-judgmental space to work through your own nervous system regulation, I'll put my link in the description so that you can contact me and we can do a session together. So remember that transformation isn't about perfection. It's about awareness, curiosity, and a little bit of courage. You can visit me at candidcoachingco.com, because real change starts with one small step, and you don't have to take it alone.